Hey, Durham. I interviewed Durham City Council candidate Bonita Green and Mimi Kessler. Both are very involved with Durham's Interneighborhood Council, or INC, and are very concerned about SCAD, otherwise known as Simplified Code for Affordable Development, which will be voted on by Durham City Council on August 21st. SCAD is promoted by the developers as making housing more affordable, but is it really making it more affordable for the developers by deregulation and circumventing the public process? In the long run, this will potentially negatively impact a lot of Durham citizens. Please listen to this enlightening discussion and contact Durham City Council about your concerns regarding SCAD before August 21st.
So SCAD is short for Simplified Codes for Affordable Development.
And do you think SCAD does what it says?
No, it doesn't simplify the codes. There's nothing in it that actually provides for meaningful, affordable development. And it is primarily to make things go faster for developers.
So basically it's streamlining the developers.
Yes, it's streamlining the developer's process.
Yeah, so who benefits the most from SCAD?
The developers.
Of course. What concerns me most about SCAD is that it would make it easier, of course, for developers to develop, but it's not addressing the need for housing that Durham currently needs. We need housing for people at every income level, and the developers are only addressing market rate properties and building. And also that there's a lot of hidden things within this document. It's not completely transparent in what they're going to do and where they're going to do it, and there's little to no oversight or accountability.
Yeah, I think that what I object to the most is that it's very extreme. For example, we go from having required parking spaces depending on what type of dwelling it is or what type of commercial outlet it is, and they want to go for no required parking. That just seems ludicrous in our time now. I mean, we have to, yes, we want to move so we're not as dependent on cars, but we're not there yet. And people will be shooting each other over parking spaces near their house. If all these dwellings are built with no required parking off the street, it will be horrible. And I live in a neighborhood where it already is bad, and we all have parking off the street. So it's just too extreme.
The shooting thing, sorry, I'm a little off topic, but the shooting thing, that would always happen at Northgate every year at Christmas time in the parking lot. There used to always be a shooting at Northgate at Christmas time, people fighting over parking. So can you even imagine?
Yeah.
You know, this even, and the developers say they want this to be like DC or like Atlanta. DC and Atlanta have robust public transportation systems. Yeah. We don't have that here.
So I lived in Atlanta for 25 years, and its public transit is not great, but at least they have it. and it's just not rational to be that extreme from, I think apartment buildings, I think it's 1.2 or 1.5 parking spaces per apartment. And most people have 2 cars.
Right.
So even when they supply the required parking, it's not enough.
Yeah, it sounds like incredibly poor planning.
Yeah. And they want to do that because if you have off-street parking, then they can't build on that.
Right.
So they want all of the land that's not on the street to be buildable.
Mm-hmm. It's maximizing their
density.
Yeah.
Right. And we do need to increase the density, but we don't have to do it in this extreme way.
Back in end of '79 or so, my sister lived in DC, and I moved to DC because I was going to go to beauty college there. And initially in moving in, she lived Northwest, and she didn't have a car, for a long time, but she had her car was old, broken down, but she kept her parking space because it's at a premium. And she gave up her parking space and then she got a car. Imagine you gotta park your car on the street and you gotta get up every 2 to 4 hours to go move your car. And sometimes you're parking like 2, 3, 4 blocks away. It's not like it's right in front of the building.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do to Durham.
Yeah.
You know, you've got these buildings and they've got waiting lists because people have multiple cars. They've got waiting lists or there's not enough parking. And then maybe there's permitted parking on the street, but if the permitted parking is all filled, what are you gonna do? And there's no way to live that you gotta set your alarm every few hours throughout the day and night to get up and go move your car.
Do you feel like SCAD is the fox guarding the hen house? In other words, like, should policies be written by the private industry that's going to regulate that industry?
No, I think that I felt that way in 2018-19 with the expanding housing choices. There was a developer panel that gave them all these ideas about how to loosen the code so that there could be more infill primarily. And I was like, well, wait a minute, why wasn't there a resident panel? You know, and at the time I said to the people in the planning department, you know, I get it why you didn't have a resident panel because you didn't know us. But you know us now. And I think you should have a resident panel. And if we, you know, if the developers want to do something, have the resident panel look at it and, you know, and give some feedback. So it is the fox guarding the hen house, yes.
Yeah, definitely so. The bigger piece with that is that in their marketing, i.e. community engagement part of this, they're saying that this is for small developers, small local developers. But I was able to get one of them to admit that this provides a backdoor opportunity for your larger developers to come through as well. So yeah, it is a fox guarding the hen house, and we need to be diligent about pushing back on this, because while it's good for developers, it's not good for Durham at all. It's not good for the residents in Durham and your median income and your lower income residents. It's not great. I just saw something where in Charlotte now, if you're making $80,000 or under, then you can't afford to buy in Charlotte.
Right. That's already
And
true here.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's already true here.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Wow, that probably does make sense, because a house that would have been, I don't know, like I remember when $100,000 was like kind of a lot for a house.
Yes. Yeah.
And now these same houses are like $400,000 or $500,000, and they're not even well built in some cases.
And that's the thing; they're not well built at all.
So lots of developments have been passed, as you guys know, and lots of housing has been built, but did it affect the housing prices to actually make it more affordable? In other words, have we seen evidence that the trickle-down theory actually is applying to the housing in the Triangle area?
Yeah, no, it's not applied at all.
Well, and particularly with the developments that they've already approved, when you add in, you know, 2,000 apartments or townhouses or whatever, you know, it's going to make a huge difference, and then we're going to really have, you know, housing prices will drop, I think, at that point. But right now, what we're seeing is primarily infill. Other than the big developments, there's infill, and you know, they said that, well, if we build more, you know, density, then the prices will go down. So they took down at the corner of Club Boulevard and Gregson. There's a very small development there that's actually one lot. It was a larger lot than usual. They took down one house. They have built 8 dwelling units on that. It's actually fairly attractive, but each of them sold for $500,000. And they were not
They have
sold
no
to
yard space.
They have no, yes, there's 0 yard space, but they do have parking, which was required at you know, now. And they, you know, so it isn't like they're gonna take down one house, have these 8 units, and then make them all, you know, $200,000. they are maxing out the profits. And as long as they're doing that, there's gonna be no trickle down.
Yeah.
All of those units were bought by investors, not by the people who are gonna live in them.
Yeah, and that's the problem we have in Durham, yeah.
Yes, and it means that families are not building wealth.
Mhm.
Right.
So while
The
they may
rich are
not-
getting richer.
Yeah, I think people can't find homes in their price point, is that one thing. I think secondly, that there are properties that are just, they're owned by investment companies and they're just sitting. And
Yeah.
even the, on Gear Street, those three uber modern homes, that were, when they went in, they were $750,000 in it, which was crazy. I spoke to a reporter who actually went and knocked on the door and spoke to the owner. The owner was like, they look good, but they're very poorly built. And they're dealing with leaks, roof leaks, and all of these other things on these, big 700. It's a flat roof, and that's notorious for flat roofs. But they're dealing with roof leaks on this house that was originally paid at $750,000. One of the houses sold about a year and a half later, and it was like between $850 and $890 that the house sold for. But I don't think it's fair that the developers have an open door policy, but the general public does not.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and the evidence of that is the developer panel for the Expanding Housing Choices Initiative, and no input from the public.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that was a sweeping change in the building codes, and nobody knew about it. If they had said that they were going to rezone all of the urban tier properties that this it affects, that would be about 30,000 properties. And if they were going for a rezoning, they would have had to send letters to all of the property owners for all 30,000. So by having a text amendment, they circumvent the notification process.
And I think they were hoping the same thing would happen with SCAD,
SCAD, yeah.
that it would just slide under and nobody would notice, nobody would pay attention.
Right.
We've never seen such a large text amendment proposal before. I mean, the text amendment is supposed to be about one thing, one issue. This had 87 pages of it.
Do you feel like City Council will approve SCAD, and why?
So I will respond to this by saying this. I mean, I find it very interesting that one of the developers on the project kind of brags that he knows he has the votes on the council. And so the question is, how do you know that? The other interesting thing is when you listen to the way the council speaks about development, they use the talking points of the development industry. And that to me is really problematic because, our council members are there to advocate for the people of the city of Durham and what's best for the city of Durham and not the development community. But it seems like it's exactly the opposite. The message that they send each time they vote to pass a development is that we don't care about the people who live in Durham. We only care about the new people that are coming.
Yes, everybody knows what the votes are going to be because there doesn't seem to be any discretion. Every single development gets approved by 4 people on council, and 3 people will vote against things. If it's a good proposal, and all of them will vote yes, but we haven't seen any good proposals lately.
Do you feel like there has been some dishonesty associated with SCAD? Like, for instance, the Habitat for Humanity scandal?
While you had one developer's name on it, then you had another nonprofit organization's name that was added to it, but there was no signature from that organization. There's a ton of other developers and builders and contractors that are involved in this entire process. Well, I think we both attended a meeting in Walltown. It was one of their first alleged community engagement type meetings. And it was less of an education about what SCAD was and what was in it. It was more of a marketing campaign. And the thing that I really found interesting or question was the fact that when people were asking very hard-hitting questions, they became very defensive.
They actually
during the-
started attacking the person asking the question.
Wow.
And there was one person there who called them on it. And I was like, you go.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, and so it's like, if you're that defensive, there must be something in here that you don't want people to know about. And then the part where they were like, oh, the ADUs will be great because then it'll allow the homeowners to build an ADU in their backyard and they can provide affordable housing and blah, blah, blah. There's no guarantee that whoever builds an ADU in their backyard is going to provide for affordable housing. And so my question was, will this also allow for bigger builders, because once they're addressing the small builders, the homeowner, will this allow for your bigger builders also to be coming to do this? And they were trying to do the song and dance and the talking points, and I said, it's a yes or no. And they said yes, it's going to allow that. And so those are the things that they weren't fully disclosing all of what's in SCAD. It's great for developers, but it's not going to be good for Durham or anywhere this type of program is introduced. Not good for current residents and homeowners at all. Yeah, but there needs to be some sort of protections for people who already live in the spaces. And there is no, and when you complain, then there's like hatred and vitriol that's spewed at you from the dais. And you wonder, well, why? Why are you so angry that I'm here speaking up for myself? What's in it for you?